entertainment, insights. Don't take life too seriously. Welcome to Brainsky Unleashed.
Hello, and welcome again to yet another episode of Brainsky Unleashed. If you like what you see on these programs, please do not forget, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave 5 stars, 5 stars. Great reviews. That's the way to do it. Anything less unacceptable. So here we are today, another week down the books. A lot going on with Doge, and a lot of people are still having their feathers ruffled because the idea of spending less money on crap is bothering people, which I'm not really sure I understand. A couple of recent items that I figured I would bring up because I found them fascinating. One specifically, we're cutting off some funding on some things, which I think is great. One thing that we're cutting off funding on is $3 million. It's a $3 million contract to write a report that showed that prior reports were not utilized by schools. So we're going to spend $3 million to write a report about reports that went unread. But there's no waste, clearly. I do have to actually make a correction. Now, I don't normally have to do corrections, but I will do this because I was wrong in my last episode. And it was brought up by a reporter in a White House interview. Elon Musk actually had to make a correction, and he admitted that he was wrong. So therefore, I will as well make a correction. Last episode, I reported, or at least recorded, that $50 million went to condoms in Gaza. And as it turns out, it's only half true. $50 million did, in fact, go to condoms, but not in Gaza, in Israel, but in Gaza, Mozambique. Now, why are we spending $50 million in rubbers? That's the real question. It seems to be a bit wasteful. When I think about needs versus foolishness, I think about the people in Asheville, right? So these poor people, they went through a storm, wiped out their entire community. They have no homes. I think about the people in Los Angeles. These are wealthy people who now have no homes and can't even go back because they don't have running water. They don't have electricity. They don't have gas. They don't have any utilities. It's a dumpster fire out there. And right now in California, the bureaucracy is already starting to kind of work their way through to kind of gum up the process on putting it back together because, well, climate. So let's go back to some other things that we find incredibly important, right? Because why wouldn't you want to spend $9 million for contracts for Central American Gender Assessment Consultant Services? So that's Brazil Forest and Gender Consultant Services, I think is the name of it. And for the Women in Forest Carbon Initiative Mentorship Program. Critical. Can't cut there. I mean, need that. One thing I find really perplexing, though, there are judges right now that are blocking the cuts. Now, that's one I don't really understand. Maybe I'm clueless when it comes to government and civics. I didn't think I was. I know I got an education, albeit, I mean, look at me today. I'm quite relaxed. I'm quite casual today. I may not have a more business attire on, but that should not take away from the fact that I also did manage to go through, like, 4th grade civics. And I do recall that the Congress makes the laws, then so you got the legislative branch, then you have the executive branch that they execute, they run the program, they enforce the laws, right? They Congress writes it, the executive branch, they run it. And then the judicial branch, well, they make judgments about the laws, whether they're legal or not. I mean, that's kind of like the really, really simplified, balances of power, right? I mean, there's a lot more minutia, but what I really don't understand is if the executive branch is the branch that has the agencies that work for it, the acronym agencies, the alphabet soup agencies that all work for the executive branch, then it would be up to the executive branch how it's going to manage the laws that are in place. So what's really been happening over the last several decades? Number one, you can't get Congress to get 60 votes on anything of actual significant importance. It's rare when it happens, right? But most of the time, they'll all get together about, let's rename next Thursday the Happy Fun Farts Day. Let's, make sure that we vote on raising flags for, such and such a holiday. I mean, these are things that a lot of people can agree on. That's great. But when it comes to big things, I mean, really, they can't get together on anything to get to 60 votes. That's a problem. And yet we, the voters, create that circumstance because we keep getting the same people who do the same things, and then we expect to change. And that change doesn't come, and then we get frustrated. Well, the change this time around, in fact, came from Donald Trump. The voters got tired of the way things were. Insert Donald Trump, the disruptor. Man, is he disrupting? He got a whole lot of people under him who's disruptive and disrupting. And that's really kind of making some people uncomfortable. But is it all bad? One could argue that it's a dumpster fire. It's horrible. And one can make that argument as long as you read MSNBC or the New York Times. Now, if you don't use those as your number one news site and you do look at some other sites, you might kind of process things through and realize that, maybe it's not so bad. Now, does that mean that everyone's going to get it perfect? Absolutely not. That's not a thing. No such thing as perfect. But I think that we're probably on a pretty good trajectory. One thing that most people don't really think about is the U.S. national debt. Well, the U.S. national debt currently, as of today, as I brought it up, according to the Office of Management and Budget, the U.S. national debt is currently sitting at $42.6 trillion, which means that an average citizen, you, me, anyone else that pays taxes, we would owe $120,407. Each of us would have to pay that in to knock out that debt. Not very realistic. So if that's not realistic, then what do we do about the problem? Well, you're seeing what we're doing about the problem. Mad cuts, insane cuts. What's in the news today? Well, you have 75,000 federal employees that have been offered a really sweetheart deal to retire early and leave their jobs. Okay, a lot of people out of work. They're getting paid for 8 months without doing anything. Okay, Is it ideal? Probably not. Would everyone like to keep their jobs? Obviously. But should we keep doing what we've been doing? And is it going to keep going the same direction? Well, the answer to that is yes. You can't right the ship if you keep going the way we've been going. You got to have a change. You're seeing the change. The people voted for the change. We all know it. There was a popular vote, electoral vote. It was a win across the board. You're going to see the change. This is what the people wanted, and it's popular. If you look at the polls, it doesn't matter whose polls there are. They're positive on every single thing that Trump is doing as far as cutting costs. Now, some of them are a little bit less popular than others, but it's not like there's a wide swath of America that thinks that this is the wrong direction, that cutting is the wrong way to go. It's not. As a matter of fact, we're going the right direction, but it's going to be painful. What else is in the headlines? Oh, gosh. Now, all of a sudden, MSNBC is worried about inflation. Where were they on that? Oh, I don't know, when Biden was in office. I don't think that they've been very consistent on that topic. So the concern is inflation. What's going to happen with these tariffs? Well, the tariffs that Trump did, the reciprocal tariffs, they don't go into place immediately because I believe he is using them as a bargaining chip because that is how he rolls. Pay attention. He's a deal maker, and he also uses pressure. And it may hurt for a little while, and that would suck, no doubt. But let's look at this for a moment. Most of the tariffs that the U.S. puts on products is like 2%, right? So in simple terms, if if we have things coming into the country, let's say from Japan or China or whatever, we may have a 2% tariff. I want to use China as an example because we just made some changes there, but other countries that are not necessarily being targeted right now by the administration, so like 2.5%, something like that. And so that's a tariff that's got to be paid. But yet, if we sell our products into those countries, they're like percentages in the teens. Well, that is wrong. That is an imbalance. So why wouldn't you want to balance that out? Because if you balance it out, everybody wins. Again, is it the worst thing in the world to try and do this? I don't think so. Just saying. From a citizen standpoint, from a voter standpoint, from a taxpayer standpoint, they've been honest, they've been open, they've been upfront, they've been transparent. That's something that we're not used to. They're actually being incredibly transparent, so transparent that you have Donald Trump sitting quietly in his own office while Elon Musk is talking about the cuts that they're making and apologizing for an error in his ways. That's transparency. It is unique. I'll even give Chris Cuomo credit because he identified it. He actually came out and identified how unique that is, and it is refreshing. You didn't have that before. As a matter of fact, in the last administration, how many of you out there remember what it was like to watch the president, Biden, taking tons of questions from the press and answering them transparently? Did it happen a lot? At all? One thing the press complains about, which I think is fascinating and I love, is that they can't keep up with Trump. Well, that's kind of a cool problem to have, forcing the press to actually stay engaged and pay attention versus just taking little tidbits and making big deals out of them. Is it that bad? I don't know. I don't feel like it's that bad. And maybe there's a lot of you that feel that it is. I was chatting with somebody recently, and they're not happy. They are on the left. They feel that this is a disaster. It must stop. But when you get down to some of the issues that we're dealing with, especially MAHA, right? Make America Healthy Again. Is that a bad thing? I don't think so. The funny thing about that one is, I have a lot of friends even on the left who are in support of cleaning up the food supply. We do, in fact, have absolute garbage in our food. We are poisoning our bodies with the food that we eat, with the chemicals that we're allowed to, have on our bodies. And these are toxins that aren't even allowed in other countries, yet we do it here because of what's called regulatory capture. Is that so bad to get rid of? I don't think so. Look, put it in the comments. Tell me if that upsets you. Tell me if it upsets you and why. If you don't want RFK to start poking around the FDA and clearing out the issues with the food supply. Okay, so the guy has a stance on vaccines. How many of you read his book? Hey, let's see. Put it in the comments. How many of you read his book and what he actually says and believes versus what the media says that he believes? I took the time to read the book, The Real Anthony Fauci. There's a dirtbag, by the way. Absolute dirtbag. Read the book. We as a nation have been doing things very, very, very shady for a long time when it comes to food and drug. Really shady. So RFK is the disruptor in this one. And you know what? I'm thrilled to have him now. I was excited yesterday. Yesterday he was confirmed, and I cannot wait to see what he does with Health and Human Services and the FDA specifically, because it's a shithole. When all these toxins are allowed to be put into our bodies, and it's all approved because big pharma, big insurance, and big food are all playing a nice little game with that agency capture. So why should the FDA go after these big conglomerates when they're being paid by them? They're on the freaking payroll. Where do you think the budget is coming from for the FDA to operate? You think it's all the taxpayers? No, it's not. And there's a lot of agency capture. And agency capture is, to me, one of the worst things. It's so corrupt. And that's the word of the day, corruption. What are we seeing now more than anything else? Corruption. It's everywhere. Again, going back to where I started, we have a situation where judges are actually trying to do lawfare. Now, we know how the public loves lawfare. Didn't work out. Be careful, guys. They're trying to use lawfare to block the executive branch from doing what the executive branch was elected to do and is empowered to do according to the Constitution of the United States. But they're using lawfare to slow it down. But why? Why is it so important to slow it down and maintain the corruption? The real questions worth asking, and I think all of us need to ask this question, is who is on the take here, really? Is it RFK Jr.? Is it Donald Trump? Is it Elon Musk? I mean, last time I checked, they don't really need more money. Certainly not Elon. He's got more money than God. It's not like he's going to take money out of Social Security and put it in his pocket. Like, that's not a thing. The media will make you feel that it's a thing, but it's not. But yet we're now seeing lawfare to stop rooting out corruption. Boy, if that doesn't tell you that our system is effed right now, I don't know what is. So just some things I thought it would be worth talking about, maybe get your thoughts on, and by all means, put some comments in the comment field. Love to engage with you on this one. As always, and like I said at the outset, if you like what you see here, or if you don't, 5 stars anyway. Why wouldn't you give me 5 stars? Hello, look at me. I'm amazing. 5-star reviews across the board. Only thing that's acceptable. Hit the subscribe button, like the content, and we'll talk again soon.